Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Friday afternoon, 3:30. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman, in a fun show today. The schedule has been released. We've talked about it for 2 episodes. Let's turn the page a little bit, have some fun, and talk to one of Zach's old friends from college, old co-workers, colleagues at the Star Ledger, Andy McCullough, the great baseball scribe who has a new book out on Clayton Kershaw and the burden of greatness. So we're going to talk to him about that, his connections to the Eagles, his fandom there. But Zach, what's going on in your neck of the woods today?
Doing well. Excited for the show as always, but especially because we have Andy here. We will get into it, but I have the book right here. Digging into it. There's some good Philly nuggets in it. And just pumped to hear Andy because I think there's actually a lot that will kind of transcend baseball and applies to some of the players we cover. And also, Andy is like many people. Well, I think most people who watch the show grew up a big Eagles fan, and so we'll have fun talking Eagles memories with him. But no, it's as far as what's going on with the Eagles right now. Next week, OTAs, so we will have actual on the field football to discuss next week. Looking forward to that. There's some changes in the front office, and Jake Rosenberg, we already knew he announced his departure. Brad Obie, who was a scout for the Eagles, he's going to Carolina, according to Inside the League.
He was the Eagles Southwest scout and going to be the Midwest scout in Carolina. So that Southwest means that he would have been the first one with eyes on Jalix Hunt.
Correct. Good work. And yeah, so this is a quieter time. I see it in the comments. People are referencing this. The comment section on YouTube yesterday was not too kind to me. I took it to heart. We don't need to devote more attention to this. I
wasn't going to bring it up.
Yeah, I don't think I was making the argument that I wanted to make. I take full responsibility there. We're kind of discussing two separate things. Sometimes I convey what I think better in writing than speaking, which is a problem because we do a show 5 days a week. So I need to do it well speaking. But what I was trying to convey was simply that I wasn't talking about the volume of streaming networks. I was talking about going to streaming as it is. And I was saying that's where the industry is turning. That was the point I was trying to make. And I think we were
but nobody's arguing against having games available on streaming.
No, literally, there's a lot of people arguing that, saying that it should just be available on cable, and that it's hard to find this. And a matter of fact, because I was doing my research, there's actually more people who consume content via streaming networks than via over-the-air cable. So if it was only on, say, NFL Network, it would actually be limiting the amount of people who could see it relative to being available via streaming networks. We don't need to get into that, nor do we need to get into the data that shows the proliferation of
No. Amazon. If we're not going to get into it, don't get into it.
But
if we're not going to get into it, don't get into it.
No. So yeah. So but I do want to apologize to the audience because I was not my best self in conveying what I was trying to convey, and I should have been more cogent. And I can certainly take the L when, as my daughter says, when it's appropriate, and I will take the L on this one.
Okay. Before we get to Andy, just set the stage for OTAs next week, Zach. We'll have time to talk about it. Obviously, we expect maybe Wednesday to get to see what's going on in practice. But what would you say is 1, 2, 3 the items that you were most interested to see on the field?
Yeah, so we're not going to see much schematic stuff. It's going to be more 7 on 7 type work. You obviously want to get your eyes on Saquon. You want to see Saquon out there playing for the Eagles up close in practice, right? That's one thing there. Quinyon Mitchell, I want to see Quinyon Mitchell because in these camps you can't judge line play, but what you can get an early sense on is like movement ability from the skill guys. So Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, I would say. And then I'm curious how some of the players recovering from injuries might look. I'm curious to see the linebackers in space a bit. In particular, Nakobe Dean, Devin White. I would like to see if Nakobe Dean's out there, right? He's coming back from the injury. So that's some of the early parts of it. looking forward to catching up with Nick Sirianni. I would like to see what's a lie and what's a truth.
That's a reference to a video the Eagles put out that
Yes,
is fine content. Who's that guy hosting that thing, by the way?
I don't know, but Howie, come on. You can't say you're going to name 15 stadiums.
He did an awful job.
Yeah, get caught up.
He knew,
5.
well, that was the thing. I think that he thought it would look cooler to just not even try once he realized he wasn't going to get it. But
okay.
I mean, he did such a bad job. I mean, he's not even getting to Lambeau Field. Like, come on.
He was at Joe Robbie Stadium at number 5, right? Come on, I mean, I
give him the credit. He called him out right away. When Howie goes 15, Nick's saying no way.
Yeah, when you're on the clock, there can be some anxiety, some stage fright. I get that, right? But just go by division, right? You can knock it. You can knock out.
Yeah, it was so weird the way. Yeah, I mean, it's not so obvious. Go through the divisions in your head.
Exactly.
So
you say MetLife, Lincoln Financial Field, FedEx Field, AT&T Stadium, Lambeau Field, Ford Field. You just
Soldier Field. Absolutely.
Soldier Field. You just go on down the list, right? So a U.S. Bank Stadium. You go on down the list. So I was a little. I was like, come on, Howie, you're on the clock determining the future of your franchise. You can name 15 stadiums. That's certainly not cumbersome.
I agree.
Yeah.
As to the OTAs, I'm surprised that you sort of glossed over Cooper DeJean, because I think that's maybe the like where people line up thing that I'm most interested in is where are they putting Cooper DeJean? When we're watching, is it on the outside? Is it on the inside? We'll see.
Good point. Yeah, and whether he sees any work at safety, which I don't anticipate, but certainly inside, outside will be worth paying attention to.
All right. Before we keep going, Zach, and bring in Andy McCullough, let's talk about our friends at Olipop. Because you know what you need as you head into the weekend, Zach, is a little something to help your gut health. And what Olipop is going to bring to you is exactly that. Olipop is a new kind of soda, the world's first functional soda with a classic soda taste and the benefits of plant-based fiber, prebiotics, and other botanical ingredients to support gut health. Olipop is available and online, but it's available in over 30,000 retailers nationwide, including the most recent launch in all Wawa stores. Olipop's debut in Wawa could not be more of a match made in heaven. A delicious, healthy drink meets a convenience store, both adored by cult followings. And you know what you get at Wawa is the 2 most popular Olipop flavors, classic root beer and strawberry vanilla. You want to extend beyond those 2 most popular? There's plenty of options. There's vintage cola, orange squeeze, classic grape. A lot of love for the classic grape in the office the other day. People really evangelizing that particular flavor. Cream soda, cherry cola, all of those other good ones, and a Dr. Pepper dupe called Dr. Goodwin as well. So use the code PHLY20 for 20% off your next Olipop order. The discount only applies to one-time orders, not to subscription orders. Olipop is sold online at drinkolipop.com or on Amazon, and it's available in almost 30,000 retailers nationwide, including Wawa, Target, Sprouts, Wegmans, ShopRite, and GoPuff. Drinkolipop.com. That's OLIPOP. Olipop.
If Clayton Kershaw is the last of his kind, the person on the screen on my right here, well, it's a commercial break right now, but before Paul Skeens, he might be the first of his kind. And if you want to get in on some Paul Skeens action, take the over on his strikeouts. I'll take the over whenever he pitches on his strikeouts. And if you want to take the over, you need to go to the BetParks app, because we're brought to you by the BetParks app. Get in the zone with the BetParks Sportsbook app. Money's in the moments. What events are coming up? The Preakness is coming up. I was reading Dick Girardi's story on allphly.com, and I found a Philly horse to follow. Make sure you check that out on allphly.com, and you can bet on it.
If there's a Philly horse to find, you will find him.
In the BetParks Sportsbook app. Win big with all day action. Win your first $10 bet and earn $125 in sports bonus bets. You play for fun. You love the win. You bet. Download the app and play along with us. Must be 21 or older. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, let's bring him in from the bench here. Andy McCullough from, I believe it's pronounced The Athletic. But Andy, thanks for joining us.
Yo, thank you guys for having me, man. Let me tell you something. I could use some of that kombucha soda when I was watching the Birds in the second half of last year, man. It was, hey, so they hired Kellen Moore. This guy got fired by the Chargers, and he's going to fix Jalen? Okay. Hey, guys, thank you for having me. This is very nice.
Thank you for coming. Great accent. Author of, let me pull up the exact title here.
There it is.
The Last of His Kind.
Yeah, wow.
Clayton Kershaw and The Burden of Greatness, and also co-author of such greats as Mets Jason Bay feels better while Ronnie Paulino is cleared to work out. That's with Zach Berman and Andy McCullough sharing a book.
Wow. I needed ZB to write the other half of that notebook for sure.
I want to know, how did you who was writing the lead on that bad boy?
I have no recollection whatsoever.
I hope Andy was, because actually Andy had I can tell you like hundreds of his leads over the years. That's not an exaggeration that I like, but he had a story in college about leads. It was a story about a professor, Charlotte Grimes, and it was the lead was about leads, and it was incredible. As all of Andy's work is, in particular this book here. And I will say, because we're talking to Andy about a lot of things today, but ostensibly we do want to promote the book.
Yeah, we got to plug the book.
Yes,
absolutely.
The Last of His Kind. Well, here I'll let you plug it, and then I'll add in some words.
My agent has told me that people in Philadelphia do not read books. I have pitched to him.
That is bad news for Zach.
I have pitched to him a Philadelphia-related story. There's a very prominent Philadelphia athlete who could be theoretically in another project, and I was told that Philadelphians do not read. So prove him wrong and buy this book, which has nothing to do with Philadelphia. No, so I wrote a biography of Clayton Kershaw.
Is he saying Philadelphians do not read or cannot read?
No, he's saying they can. They just choose not to, which is even more frustrating. It's the cradle of democracy. Yeah, so I wrote this. It's a biography of Clayton Kershaw. I've been trying to find a project I think that was worth, investing a couple of years of my time. I covered the Dodgers for several years for the Los Angeles Times, and so I had a relationship with Kershaw from that. And then when I moved to the Athletic, still wrote about the Dodgers a lot. And so I approached him in 2022 to see if he would be up for it, and he agreed to, participate and be interviewed for it, and ended up, talking fairly extensively. And so, I think, it's a book about him, but it's also a book about what's happened to baseball over the last 20 years. And I think, in a lot of ways, the central question of the book as it pertains to Kershaw is like how to remain great without, losing sight of who you are, how to change without, giving away the parts of yourself that allow you to become great in the first place. And so, I don't know. I'm happy with it. I'm glad that it's out into the world and people seem to be reading it. So, yeah.
I want to get into a lot of what you learned and, what you learned that you didn't know after, still having covered him for so long. But I want to start with some of the inside baseball of the book writing process, because I know that this is front of mind or back of mind for Zach. How long did the process overall take, from start to finish? Yeah,
I mean, from start to starting to talk about doing a proposal, early May of 2022 and it came out in, May 7th last week. So almost 2 full years. But I would say the bulk of the work was done in earnest from June of 2022 to it's a 23 chapter book, and I had to file 21 of those chapters by the end of September. So, a little bit more than 15 months or so. So it was a bit of a sprint, but I ended up enjoying the process a lot. And kind of just doing it a little chunk at a time in the mornings, mostly last summer. It was fun.
Best part of the process, worst part of the process?
I think the best part of the process, just from a kind of selfish, writerly aspect, was that I would get up early in the morning, and I have a cat that wakes me up at 3 or 4 in the morning every day. And so the cat would wake me up, and I would make myself breakfast and, write 500 words every day. Basically, that was kind of my goal. And after that, I knew that no matter what happened that day, I'd felt good about the fact that I had hit the goal. And so it made it easier to just feel like I was, being a productive human. I guess the worst part of the I don't know. I'm not great at like selling myself or like the marketing aspect,
Yes.
although I've been told I'm doing a lot better than expected in terms of how I haven't like snapped on any radio interviews or things like that. So that's been good. I don't know. I mean, Zach knows this. Like,
might be your answer, but
I got on Otter, man. Otter's great. It's hard when like you put a lot of time and effort into a book and then it kind of becomes all about like sales in some ways, but that's just the modern industry. And so please buy the book so I can feel better about those numbers, which I'm, whatever. But yeah, it's, I would say in general, like I really enjoyed the process a lot more than I expected. I really found that I liked it a lot. I know a lot of people talk about it, writing books as being kind of torture, but this was really fun for me.
go ahead.
I will promote Andy then, and because I am happy to do this. This is incredible. Like, this is awesome, and I'm so happy for Andy.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell the audience that, and I mean that earnestly. Like, I've known Andy for 20 years now, longer than that. But no, 18 years.
Yeah,
okay?
18. Yeah,
18 years, and this is not exaggeration. This is the kind of thing we like dreamed about. When we were in college, and he's earned it all, right? And like this isn't just a book. Like this is incredible. Like I'll give you an example. The day it came out, I wanted to see it in a bookstore. Like I wanted to not just get it in my mailbox. Like I wanted to see it in a bookstore, and I go to the Barnes and Noble in Plymouth Meeting, and I ask them, like, I need The Last of His Kind by Andy McCullough. And this is the type of book that like they're carrying in Philadelphia, right? Like this is a national type book. Andy's saying he's saying casually, my agent, like he's big time. Right? This is one of the great players in baseball history, and this is the definitive biography of it. And I think it was put well by Ian O'Connor, who's incredible in writing books as it is, right? In terms of biographies, especially Derek Jeter. Mike Krzyzewski, when I met it.
Yeah, Ian's book on Jeter is kind of the model for this. It's like Ian presented as the definitive work on Jeter's time as a Yankee, and I kind of wanted to do that with Kershaw, like the definitive work on his time as a Dodger. So anyway, sorry, I'm interrupting.
And so Ian knows, and Ian says, so this is from the blurb in the back. Kershaw is to Sandy Koufax what McCullough is. No, as Worthy Heirs go, Kershaw is to Sandy Koufax what McCullough is to Roger Kahn.
Wow.
Like you hear that.
It's a bit much.
That is no, that's not a bit much. That is earned, that is deserved. And I am
It's very kind of him to say that.
I'm so happy for Andy. And Andy's also he's underselling the fact that this has nothing to do with Philadelphia. This book has a lot to do with Philadelphia. A matter of fact, anyone of our generation who reads this can instantly associate with Clayton Kershaw, because there's a nugget in this book that Clayton Kershaw wants his son to play baseball like Chase Utley, right? That's who he wants him to play like. And I imagine so many people who grew up around the time we did, it might be you want him to play like Jimmy Rollins or pitch like Cole Hamels. But Chase Utley is obviously a franchise icon here. Kershaw wants him to play like Chase Utley. There's a interesting part of this book, actually, when Kershaw's first coming up and he's playing against the Phillies in the playoffs. So he's already up at that point, but he's not Clayton Kershaw yet. And that's pretty clear when the Phillies face him. And like that's chronicled really well there. Actually, Andy had what Joe Torre was doing when like he was talking about Clayton Kershaw in that Game 5 game when Jonathan Broxton threw the pitch that was sent out of the park. Anyways, I mean, I don't want to say like I'm proud of Andy. That sounds weird to say. Like
It's very kind of you.
Yeah,
I don't think that sounds weird.
Yeah, I'm proud.
That's very
of
kind. Friend.
Like,
you can be proud of your friend.
Yeah. No, I don't think because I'm the one looking up to Andy, right? That's what I mean.
That's just a genetic thing.
That's true too. But what I was so proud when I saw this because Frank DeFord, he a great sports writer for those who don't know. He said like there's no better time than when you're first starting, right? And we were starting together, Andy and I. Like we were at Daily Orange together, we were at the Star Ledger together, and like this is the kind of thing we dreamed about. That's not an exaggeration. So this is amazing, and I am so happy. And Andy deserves all the nice words being said about him because he's earned it all.
Thank you. It's very kind of you. Randy Wolf is in the book as well.
Of course,
there's a lot of Randy Wolf.
A lot of Randy Wolf.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of ways to go here because I kind of want to delve into your guys' relationship, but let's keep the focus on Clayton Kershaw first. Now, if you're like on the fence about like should I buy this book, go read the excerpt on The Athletic because it's fantastic and it dives into like Clayton Kershaw's 5-day loop, this mechanic where he's a bubbly guy and a great teammate on days 1 through 4, but come the day that he's going to be on the mound, like stay the hell away. And the burden of greatness, which is in the title. And I think for Eagles fans, if we can connect this, there is like we think about Jason Kelce, right, who had been wrestling with when to retire for so long and finally decided to do that. And Zach and I have talked on the show about like one of the things that impresses us about Kelce is every single person he meets in Philadelphia, like it is the highlight of their day, if not longer. And like the burden of being Jason Kelce. Obviously, it's somewhat similar for Clayton Kershaw. What did you learn from getting to talk to him about that specific burden, like just everyday life and in the clubhouse to his teammates and walking around with Dodgers fans he runs across, just being Clayton Kershaw?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's less about fame in some ways, but I think it's more just about the exacting standards that he holds for himself. And there are a lot of athletes who rely upon like external sort of things. Michael Jordan is like famous for kind of making stuff up to be mad about or misremembering slights to sort of, and like Kershaw's not really like that. It's all basically just like this internal combustion engine of anxiety that causes him to feel like he has to do things in a certain, order at a certain time in a certain way, time after time after time in order to take the mound every 5th day and be able to stare down the person in the batter's box and feel like I have worked harder than you, I am more prepared than you, and I am going to win because of it. And that is, it's not necessarily like a unique approach, but I think what is unique to him is just how dogmatic he is about it, how like unwilling he is to deviate from the schedule. And one of the things I wanted to sort of, talk to him about was just like, so how do you feel like having done this for so long and like felt that sort of internal stress? And one of the things he talked about that I thought was really fascinating is like, I asked him, so it's in that excerpt, but it's kind of this idea of like, we got to talking about what he likes about his job and what he doesn't like about his job. And I feel like a lot of athletes, when they get to a stage where their body starts to break down, the thing they love is the competition, right? They love the games. They love being able to do, what it is they do. And he talked about how much he loved the 4 days in between starting, like the work and the preparation and the lifting and all of that stuff that he really, really enjoyed. But the 5th day was just like, he's like, well, my arm is really going to hurt tonight and my back is really going to hurt tonight. And I'm going to be super stressed all day long. And he's like, yeah, that kind of sucks, which I just thought was like a really sort of honest insight into what it means to like hold yourself to that sort of standard day after day for, 15 years. And I think it applies, it manifests in different ways to like elite athletes. But I think it's just kind of a fascinating, very rarely, I feel like, do we get a window into what it is like to be that sort of person. It's not a thing that any of us can really relate to in any sort of way. And so one of the things I'm glad about that he was willing to be so open for this is I think at the very least, you can pick up this book and understand, like, for, first ballot Hall of Famer, like, I believe he's the best pitcher of this generation, but, an elite athlete of the 21st century, what it was like to basically be that sort of person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would follow up with that. And that, I think, is where it applies to the football, and it applies to football, applies to the Eagles. Bo mentioned Jason Kelce, and it's something we talked about. Bo had a great piece on The Athletic in 2020, January 2020, where he had been following Jason Kelce around that season.
Yeah, I remember that one.
With him every week.
Saw the injuries. Yeah,
the physical toll on the body. And beyond like the physical nature of football, I think that shows like what you're willing to do what he does. And then, you know, I remember conversations I had with Malcolm Jenkins about like things he would do in terms of preparing for games. Like you said, those days between starts, what Malcolm's life was like Monday to Saturday in the football season. And, you know, Bo and I have been fortunate to be around, perhaps even at the Kershaw level, but certainly like potential Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers, whether it's
Kelsey's a Hall of
Kelsey.
Famer.
Yeah. Kelsey, you know, Jason Peters, although I didn't get to know Jason Peters as well, but we did a lot of work on Jason Peters.
Christian Ellis.
No, like AJ Brown now. I mean, Jalen Hurts in terms of like level of fame and like that type of trajectory. And you see the price you have to pay. That's why I think the title's great, right? The burden of greatness, because burden sometimes takes on a negative connotation, but I think it can be applicable in terms of like you're carrying that every day. You know, AJ Brown spoke about this a few weeks ago. Like he has a choice every day about what he's going to do to try to be better. And did you? So this is a roundabout. I'm speaking, but I'm also asking a question here. You were around great players with the Dodgers, with the Yankees, with the Mets. DeLon Carter at Syracuse.
Forget about the Royals.
DeLon Carter, come on.
Yeah.
Jake Fraley.
Was Clayton Kershaw like noticeably different, or was he just in that tier?
Yeah, no, it's different. I mean, it's the level of intensity is different, and that's not to like slight other players. I think that everyone in the big leagues is working hard, you know, in the same way that I assume everyone in the NFL is working hard. Although it would be funny if like half the guys in the NFL weren't trying, so that could be possible.
I think there's some guys who aren't trying sometimes.
Yeah, there's some guys who make business decisions. I mean, I think that it's not so much what he's doing is different. It's just the consistency. It's just the like if you go into Dodger Stadium at 2 p.m. on a, you know, Tuesday afternoon and he's not pitching that night, I guarantee he will be out in the outfield running every day. He'll be doing his sprints. He'll be doing his agility drills. You know, he'll have his goofy headband on with his cut off sleeves and he'll be doing his stuff. And it's just every single day. And I would go to the ballpark and get there and set up my laptop and be sitting there. And sometimes you just wonder, like, why are you like this? You know, like you just threw a shutout last night, or like your back is hurt. You're like supposed to be on the injured list. You know, why are you, you know, subjecting yourself to this? And that's kind of one of the things I wanted to try and get into. But like, it's the sort of thing that he has from a young age, he determined that he understood what the things were that made him great. And he held on to that very, very tightly and was kind of not unwilling, but very, very reticent to change from that unless he had to sort of it had to be really demonstrated to him that he needed to change. And I feel like that is something that elite athletes, I mean, it's like Jalen Hurts strikes me as a person like that, who like has a very like supreme sense of what makes him, you know, a great quarterback, or at least did. I'm a little concerned, but you know, but like he has that like that bedrock of confidence, it seemed like, and in order to move off that, it requires a lot. And I think that one of the challenges that at least a lot of baseball players go through is when they get to the majors and things start to go wrong, they get overloaded with information and they get told, oh, maybe, you know, do this with your swing, or if you try throwing this pitch or whatever. And some players listen too much and some players, you know, don't listen at all. And the key is just like finding that sweet spot, you know, and Kershaw is someone who has always sort of been able to be in that sweet spot, I guess.
So I'll ask you the question I teased a little bit earlier. You know, having covered Kershaw for as long as you did before the book writing process, what did you learn throughout the process that, you know, maybe surprised you or you didn't know or didn't expect?
There's just a lot of stuff that I didn't, you know, a lot of stories I heard, you know, like he flipped his car in the minors, which was a thing no one knew about. His first dance at his wedding was to DJ's Fallen in Love Again by Usher, which I didn't expect.
Would be weird if you did. Although I to be fair, I don't want to compare you guys. I feel like Zach would have found a way.
That's very much like a third question from Zach and meeting a guy.
He played the Super Bowl, Usher. Yeah.
That's good. I think, I mean, I guess this isn't like one of the things that really kind of shaped the way the book ended up being was that he just started talking about how I was under the impression that the losses in the postseason he had early in his career were more devastating than the later ones, like in 2021 and 2022. And he was sort of saying it was the opposite, that the more recent ones were more painful because he felt like he was running out of time, which is not necessarily a unique point, but it just wasn't something I was expecting going in. And so it allowed me to sort of reshape the book to make it a bit more about like athletic mortality than anything else.
Were you surprised that he cooperated as much as he did?
To an extent, yeah. I mean, he was very like, he was pretty easy to deal with, you know, like, I mean, we've known each other for a long time and we have a good, you know, working relationship, but he and his wife, Ellen, were extremely generous with their time, you know, and open to subjects that were often fairly painful for them to talk about, you know, both personally and professionally. And so I guess like in looking back, I'm a bit surprised at it, but kind of once we got into it, it became very clear that like he understood that this was, without trying to sound too grandiose, like this was an important sort of thing for his career, you know, like this is a real book that is going to be in bookstores and that, you know, people are going to be like reading and things like that. So he should take it seriously. And I think he understood that and, you know, participated on like in
for a penny and for a pound.
Yeah. Like he was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, like I'll talk to you about this stuff. Yeah.
Go ahead, Zach.
Bo likes to tease me about, that's like an evergreen expression.
I would never
Bo
do that. Yeah.
He's about everything. But one of the things that he teases me about is my weird recollection of how like different people met their significant others. And
all you need to do is read the piece in the Athletic, and you get the answer right there.
No, but I'm saying the life of David Gale, going to see the life of David Gale when he was in high school.
Yeah.
How did you come across that morsel of information?
I was talking to Ellen, his wife, about just kind of like their early days dating, and like Ellen is the best interview in America, I think, because she just like thinks in anecdotes. She's just great. I mean, she just was so like, she just tells great stories and remembers funny things and like has just, you know, so I was just asking her about like their early time dating. And she told me this, you know, story of them going to see this awful Kevin Spacey movie, The Life of David Gale. And they couldn't get tickets.
Awful, by the way, but yeah.
I don't know. I've never seen it. They didn't seem to like it. You know, I don't support Kevin Spacey, but that's, you know, whatever you guys want to do.
Zach now on the record as pro.
Whatever you guys want to do on the show, that's fine. This is your platform.
Never gonna skip that one now either. So,
but yeah, she was just telling me the story about they couldn't get tickets because they were R-rated, and she was mortified when Clayton ran back to her dad and like kind of knocked on the car window and asked him to go buy the tickets because they couldn't get them. And so, yeah, she just is great with stories and details. And so being able to talk to her, you know, extensively for this, I think made the book just a lot better.
Somebody asked about it in the chat, so I feel like I should ask you about it. But since this was in the window that you were, you know, narrowed in and writing the book, the controversy from last year with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence and Kershaw, how does that sort of play into everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the book. It's the sort of thing that one of his guiding sort of qualities is his Christian faith. And so, you know, that has some offshoots, I think, that sometimes, you know, can be frankly, you know, that can be frankly like offensive to people. And he was upset. It's kind of, all right, let me start from the back. It's
we'll get to something later after this.
No, it's fine. I mean, look, I mean, it's not, you know, there were times like during the
his views are not you don't have to defend.
Well, yeah, no,
I just want
to correct, but I also want to like explain it within the context of why, because I, you know, want to be fair to him. It's the sort of thing that like last year people were like, "You're going to write about this?" And it's like, yeah. Like it was a major national news story. Yes. So last year, the Dodgers, when they hosted Pride Night, they disinvited this group called they originally invited this group called the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. They are a group of queer and trans nuns based in San Francisco who were very active, especially in the 80s, raising money and awareness. And the invitation to the group triggered this sort of like kind of clearly coordinated sort of conservative backlash where like the Dodgers were getting robocalls, and Marco Rubio wrote a letter to Rob Manfred, and there was kind of a backlash towards this group being invited to Pride Night. The Dodgers disinvited the group, and then they subsequently, when there was an internal backlash from Dodgers people and people in Los Angeles, and it looked like the whole Pride Night would sort of be, kind of wrecked by this whole thing. The Dodgers re-invited the group. During this process, Kershaw went to Dodgers management and asked that they bring back Christian Faith and Family Night, which is a regular event that had been discontinued by the pandemic, but they've been doing it for years and years. And in announcing that Christian Faith and Family Night was coming back, he basically said that he was upset at the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence being invited to Pride Night. He felt that the imagery they use, essentially it's like this group, they kind of dress up like, nuns to sort of mock, whatever. But Kershaw described it as like, he felt like they were making fun of Christianity, and he did not care for that. And so he spoke out against that. He said it wasn't an LGBTQ issue. It was just this particular group he found to be offensive. And so, it's, like I said, like one of the central tenets of, who he is as a person is his faith. This is one of, part of it is he has, views about sort of, gay marriage that like I wouldn't necessarily agree with. He believes that, it's one of those like, hate the sin, love the sinner. He believes all people deserve a life with dignity and respect. But it's one of those things that I probably explained it better in the book. Go buy the book.
Go buy the book.
It requires like a lot of explanation in order to basically just like say he spoke out against this group. He was described as bigoted because of it, and everyone moved on.
Go ahead, Zach.
Well, I have a lot of like, we can get into some Eagles stuff too.
I didn't know the Eagles.
No.
Maybe one more tidy bow on the book before we make that the final landing punch.
Before that the transition to the thesis. So the last question then, because I do want to be sensitive to the fact that we have an Eagles audience, but we are talking about this here. But I imagine that our Eagles audience is still following. They know Clayton Kershaw, right? You wrote this book now when he's in the twilight of his career, but he's still pitching. The Dodgers and the Phillies are the two best teams in the NL this year, from my estimation. So,
okay,
what's if you waited 5 years, you waited 10 years, what's the Clayton Kershaw legacy, right? Like, because the thing now is the big game, right? That's kind of hanging over him. Does he need to pitch and win in October in November, frankly, like for that final part of his legacy? Or if this injury, if he never pitches again, is he still, like you said, the greatest pitcher of our generation? Yeah,
I mean, I think it depends on who you're talking to. I think if you talk to people in baseball, like it's fairly clear. There's nothing to be proven. If you talk to him, he would very much like to pitch well in October this year. That is important to him. If you talk to San Francisco Giants fans, he's a huge choker and a loser, and nothing will change that. But what I think his legacy will be is he's the greatest Dodger of all time. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I believe he is the best pitcher of this generation. And I think it's also, reflected in the book is he is a player who the best players that he competed against, like Paul Goldschmidt, Charlie Blackmon, Anthony Rizzo, Chase Utley, David Wright, the people who were considered elite at their time, they loved facing him because they knew that for that one day they would get a chance to judge themselves against the best player out there. And that is, I think, a lasting legacy that, like, look, the postseason stuff is what it is. He's pitched better in the regular season than he has in October. But I don't think that takes away from all that he's accomplished over the past 16 years.
Fun fact, he went to high school with Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, that's also in the book. Yeah. Matthew Stafford got a concussion on his trampoline one time. He conked his dome very hard. Yeah.
Do you have a number on how many people you talked to?
215.
Wow. Fantastic.
Yeah. From Randy Wolf to Sandy Koufax.
Nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
The last of his kind, Clayton Kershaw and the Burden of Greatness, available, as Zach would say, wherever books are sold. So we will we'll move on in a minute to some non-Kershaw stuff, some Eagle stuff. But before we do that, we got to talk about our friends at Miller Lite. And I don't know, Zach might say that this was not the case, but I think it's possible that back when the two of you were up late nights at Syracuse, maybe you were sucking them back a little bit. Have a couple Miller Lights, because a lot has changed over the years, but one thing that hasn't is the great taste of Miller Lite. Another thing that hasn't changed is that it continues to be less filling. So what is the best thing about the original light beer? Well, Miller Lite sparked this debate in 1975, and we still haven't settled it. And the other great thing, it's only like 96 calories. It's fantastic. What could be better than that? Miller Lite keeps it simple, undebatable quality, great taste, only 96 calories. It's the beer that strips away everything you don't need and holds on to what matters most, a light beer that tastes like beer, less filling, and only 96 calories. The original light beer since 1975. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/PHLY birds, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Milwaukee, Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories per 12 ounces, fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
We said that Andy's local. If you want to know where Andy's from, this is a hint. He's from where TrueMark Financial Credit Union is headquartered. That's because we talk about TrueMark every day on this show. We're proud to work with a credit union like TrueMark Financial, where you become a part owner, which means profits come back to you instead of going to shareholders. They have better rates, lower fees, a better return on savings, and more flexible options with all the same digital tools and tech that make our lives easier. They have local roots. That's what we love about them. You're a Philly person working with a Philly bank. They're headquartered in Fort Washington with 24 branches in the Philly area. They serve our community and our people right here at home. Becoming a member of a credit union has so many benefits over being a customer at a bank. It's a total no-brainer. And like I said, what I love about it is that it's a Philly brand. We're a Philly show. They're a Philly bank. Head over to TrueMark.com/PHLY to learn more or to find a branch near you. That's TrueMark.com/PHLY, federally insured by the NCUA.
So last week, Zach and I talked about, can we get Andy on the show to talk about his book? And yesterday, Zach was like, let's see if we can do it tomorrow. And he sends me a screenshot of your text messages, to say that you're coming on the show.
Wow.
And I could not believe. I mean, you guys have been friends for 18 years, as you said. The level of formality, like he was such a formal texter. I was like, Zach, what is going on here? It's like you haven't met Andy before. He's like, well, I don't know. I am a formal texter. Is this a long running thread for you?
Well, Zach's a professional guy. I mean, like he's a very professional guy. He's very respectful of, both his friends, colleagues, and, whoever his enemies may be, or whatever your relationship is.
Some of us are all three.
Whatever your relationship is with Connor Orr these days, you're professional with him. So that, by the way, I mentioned Connor was it the Combine or the Super Bowl?
Super Bowl.
That was so much fun. I had a blast just watching you guys talk about how much you hated each other based on who wanted to cover the New Jersey Nets in 2010. That's the good stuff. I enjoy that. Yeah.
I want to know where the story is.
How was your guys' relationship different from college versus colleagues at the Star Ledger?
With me and Zach?
Yeah.
I think we've always been the same. Yeah, we were never pitted against one another in the way that, he and Connor were for, assignments. Because Zach went to the Washington Post when he graduated and was, went on to fame and fortune, and then came over to, the Ledger where it was working, and then went to the Inquirer after 2 years?
Yes. Yep.
So, I mean, Zach's just been on an upward trajectory the whole time, and so I've always been very proud to consider him a friend, and I've always admired his work ethic, and his professionalism.
There you go.
It's nice to say. Yeah. First off, there's no rivalry with Connor. It was just you're 24 years old. You're and that was the great thing, by the way, about like when Connor was on. We talked about that Star Ledger sports section. The same thing with the Daily Orange, the Star Ledger. When we were there, you're around like talented, like-minded people, and what makes you better is being around talented, like-minded people, right? And that's always been the case with Andy. Like if you, and by the way, I don't make a habit of sending screenshots of text. I was showing. He said
he was letting me know that you were in. But
I was letting you know you were in. It wasn't like every text that gets sent. I'm not sending Emily's text around.
But it was like, dear Mr. McCullough, I'd love.
No, you've sent me a lot of screen grabs of your conversations with Lee Steinberg or whoever is power broker.
But in all seriousness, if you went into my Gmail and you searched for the term lead check, LEDCK, back when we were on GChat all the time, right?
Yeah,
kind of changed over the years. But I'm not exaggerating. Every story I wrote before I filed, I would send the lead to Andy, right? Or to Matt Gelb, or you go on down the list. We went to school with some great people. And it was so that it was always like with Connor, we were both covering the NFL and we were both the number 2 people on our jobs. But there was but actually during the summer, the spring and summer, Connor and I would need to be the backup baseball writers, right? And Andy at the time was the beat writer for the Mets. So literally, like when I say backup, like I took Andy's hotel room when he got vacation or not vacation, but like time off during spring training. There was the Residence Inn down in was it Jupiter and
Port St. Lucie,
I'm sorry, Port St. Lucie, and I would just cycle into Andy's room thereafter. When he would bet and he would head back up north. Same thing with like Mark Carrig, but that competition was like, shoot, he gets to cover the Yankees on this day when Jeter's going for 3,000, and I'm doing I'm doing a Willie Harris story over at Citi Field, which I did a lot of Willie Harris stories.
You loved Willie Harris, yeah.
I got along great with Willie Harris. He was the best. He was the best. Every day I would, but no, this was it was always like you're around talented, like-minded people, and that made us all better.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just iron sharpens iron. And when I think of myself as iron.
You got a football guy right there. Yeah. That's an offensive lineman at Upper Dublin for you right there.
Yeah, that's a product of, CTE from 10 years of high school football.
Let's talk a little football, Andy. I guess my first question, what is like if 10 is shoulder pad Sean, like you paint your face, and wear stuff in terms of Eagles sicko-ness, and 1 is a 0. Where are you on the scale right now, and how much is that affected by the fact that you are a professional journalist covering sport?
Does the Dirty 30 still exist?
I think so.
Okay.
More mythology than in like literal.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, because Angelo's show doesn't exist anymore. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I'm probably I'll say like a 6.5. Okay. I would say, and I was like a 1 for years and years and years and years. Like, so I grew up in Montgomery County, I went to Upper Dublin, and I was, my dad had season tickets in 751 at the Vet. Would go to games like 2 or 3 times a year with him. I was like the biggest, I love the Eagles like so much, basically up until I got to college, and it was, my freshman year was 2005, which was not a particularly fun season, as I recall. And I remember
Mike McMahon year. Yep.
Yeah, I remember.
If only there was a way to relive all of those seasons and sort of the narrative arc of the past 25 years of Eagles.
That would be interesting. Yeah, I would love to. Maybe in a bound sort of volume.
If you go to Los Angeles bookstores, you won't see that there. I'll tell you that. You might see it in Philly bookstores this fall.
Yeah.
Anyway,
whenever you got the Willie Harris biography, Zach.
Yeah.
But yeah, like in that year, I just remember like, I don't know, they lost some game, and like on like Wednesday, I was still mad, and I was just kind of like, I'm not letting this team ruin my life anymore. Like I'm just not, and it coincided with me getting into journalism, and so I had like a a moral high ground or whatever, and so I was just like out basically from there on, and never came back to any of the other Philly teams in any other way. But what happened was really is when they won the Super Bowl, like I followed along that playoffs, and I was very happy for my friends and family that they won, and but like when they won, I had just kind of like an empty feeling almost, because I hadn't earned any sort of like I hadn't been there on the journey. And so like I was happy from, like I said, for my friends and family, but it was just, and I kind of was like bummed that I didn't get to like sort of feel any of that. And so I sort of just kind of started to tiptoe back in. I followed the next year, and then it really was, got through the pandemic year. And then that season in 2022 when when Jalen sort of broke out, I kind of just got back into it and really enjoyed it. And so but I think I have a pretty healthy relationship with it. Like I watch them most Sundays. I'm very happy when they win. When they lose, I'm like, I don't care. Like, it's fine, And for a long time, I was sort of, I was one of these like big J journalists that's like, no, you cannot have any rooting interest. But like the Washington Post is never going to hire me. So like, it doesn't matter. Like they're never going. I dare them. If anyone there is listening, I dare you to try and buy me out of my contract with The Athletic. You won't do it.
You're at an amazing place. You don't need to watch it.
I'm just saying. No, so it was more just like it was like, look, The Athletic is a more free form place or whatever. Who cares? Anyway, I kind of have, as you get older, you're like, okay, why do I like impartial. If I was sent to cover the NFL, I would obviously like not show up in an Eagles hat, and I would cover the team the same way. But like, I like watching them on Sundays. So that's where I'm at with it.
How have your Philly sensibilities carried with you, right? Because you're underselling yourself. You are like, objectively one of the great baseball writers in the country. There's another one over my shoulder here, this way. Sorry.
Yeah, you get to lean the other way if you're gonna.
Yeah. Tyler Kepner, who your colleague at The Athletic, also from the Philly area, and like he has certain sensibilities that came up from growing up reading Bill Lyon and like the great Philly writers at that time. How are you shaped personally from growing up in this area at the time that you did, watching those Eagles teams that you did, but also reading what you did and being around like that Philly personality?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know if I feel somewhat, I don't want to say like I'm stealing Philadelphia valor, but like, like I've never lived in the city. And like I left, Montgomery County.
This is like a Villanova debate here. Come on, you're from the area. You grew up.
I am from the area, yeah. But like it's one of the cities where like I haven't spent as much time as I've spent there in like Chicago, or I lived in LA for 5 years, or like I lived in Kansas City for 2 years. So like I almost feel like something of an expat. Like when I come back. And I'm like, oh wow, they have nice restaurants here. Okay, So I really don't know. I mean, I was so like, I associate my sort of Philadelphia sports consumption so little with journalism and so much more with like caring about the teams that it's hard for me to make that connection. But like, yeah, it's not, as someone like, I watch like Daily News Live every day. Mm-hmm. And it took me a very long time to be like, oh, I could be one of those guys. Like that wasn't my sort of goal when I was at that age, but it's obvious that like, that's part of the influence is, you see that like there are people, like I remember like, I don't remember what it was. Just realizing like, oh, I can be one of the person to, people who can like write things in the newspaper. Like, oh, wow, maybe I actually, that could be a good way to, make money for goods and services. So yeah, I don't know. It's a hard question for me to answer. I don't have an accent, which,
you have a good performative one.
Yeah. My wife has banned it from our house. She really dislikes it. But yeah, so I don't know. Like, again, I feel like in some ways, like I'm stealing Philly valor when I talk about the city, just because I've never like I left home when I was 18 and I've never lived there otherwise for the past 18 years, you know.
Zach, what do you think of the idea of a Daily News Live type thing?
I think that's a great
where people
idea.
can watch something about sports, every day.
Yeah. I think keep tuning in to PHLY.
By the way, this is the second time in like a month, Zach, that you have just totally thrown Gelb under the bus.
What did I do with Gelb?
Like you're listing great baseball writers, and you're not even.
I obviously would include Gelb in there. I was referencing people who moved away. Okay, people who grew up here and moved away.
So Gelb is pure Philly. Is your
well, Gelb's still here? Like obviously, Gelb carries Philadelphia with him, right? It would be weird if I asked Gelb, "How do you carry Philadelphia with you when you're in Philadelphia every day?" I was referencing Tyler Kepner and Andy as people.
I'm just giving you a chance to clear it up. That's all.
That he's now an editor, but like Ben Spiegel was at the New York Times as a writer, and like he grew up in this area. There's a lot of great writers from this area who are very much shaped by the time they grew up here. I mean, that's part of the reason why it's so cool to work at PHLY, where we have the Anthony Gargano show every morning. I listen to Anthony, in the car during my childhood. So when I'm sitting at the desk with him yesterday, it's like, oh, this is like 13-year-old Zach, 15-year-old Zach would think this is pretty cool. I mean, 38-year-old Zach thinks it's pretty cool. So
sometimes I'll be just sitting alone in my apartment and I'll just say to myself, yo, cuz we're talking about Penn State football, man. Is Wally Richardson the guy to replace Gary Collins this year? So, the WIP was very formative. Like I used to fall asleep to WIP every night.
Me too.
Just listening to, on the radio, was John LeClaire in the crease yet again? Can we please get this man out of the crease? We are losing goals at a rapid rate here. Anyway,
what are your Eagles' concerns right now?
Well, what shouldn't they have hired Mike Vrabel?
Mike Vrabel? Why Mike Vrabel?
I don't know. Isn't he better than Sirianni? I'm asking.
Concussion uncle.
I mean, he did have a lot of success in Tennessee, to Andy's point. Yes. But no, I think if they didn't keep
that's like run the ball twice and hope you can run it again on third down kind of guy who does not fit the Eagles organizational ethos.
I will say I have. Well, don't they have Jeff Stoutland? He's very good at that sort of thing.
Yes.
He's the offensive line coach, not the head coach.
Well, maybe they should consider reorganization.
Yeah.
No, I have become I know this about myself, and I am very much. I'm the guy on 3rd and 4 who's like, perfect, run the ball. Like, let's go. Like, that's great. Like, yeah. And then they throw, and I'm like, why are you throwing the ball? Like, actually, it's 3rd and 2. When I see passes on 3rd and 2, I really do go crazy because just run the ball. You can run the ball. And I know that I'm wrong. I know,
four downs.
I know that I'm wrong. Like, I know intellectually that I am wrong. But in my heart, I'm like, it's 3rd and 2. Run the football, please. I have become the sort of person who used to send me emails asking why teams don't bunt anymore.
Yes.
Like I watch the NBA and I'm like, man, they're taking a lot of threes. What is like I watch Jalen Brunson like take these like mid-range twos and I'm like, see, that's basketball. This guy gets it. And so that's just the product of having to watch like 200 baseball games a year and think about baseball, and then you come to this other thing for like entertainment, and when you're not as locked in, you don't notice the changes like gradually, so now when I watch, I'm just like, where's the fullback? Why is the fullback not on the field? It's 3rd and 1.
It's like the the saying that you get more conservative as you get older. It has not happened politically. It has only happened to you as your fandom.
Yes, I would say it has happened extremely in my football opinions. Like that's the area of my life by far where I am the most conservative.
Go ahead, Zach. Did you have something?
No, that cracks me up. Just because like you would get infuriated, like you said, if someone emailed you being like, oh yeah, this guy's batting average is such and such. Why are you talking about his BABIP in the paper, right?
If someone sent me an email that was like, Yeah, Kyle Schwarber is not a leadoff hitter. I'll be like, you're an idiot. You don't understand how baseball works. But I'm watching the Eagles and I'm like, it's 3rd and 2. Why do you have 3 wide receivers on the field? Get into jumbo.
Yeah.
I was going to interject earlier. You mentioned your wife in passing, but we should give her a plug here. Stephanie Apsey from Sports Illustrated has a great piece up on Brandon Marsh that I read. It was earlier this week that I read it, but I imagine it's still up there. Yeah, so make sure you
never know.
Make sure you check that out because she's an outstanding baseball writer as well. Not from Philadelphia, I believe. So I can't ask her about the Philadelphia upbringing, but great piece on Brandon Marsh, who's never bought anything online, apparently.
Yeah, she just wrote a story about how Brandon Marsh has never used online shopping, which, she's able to get things out of players that I wouldn't think to ask. And that's why
you got the life of David Gale. Okay. So give yourself some credit.
Yeah.
It's funny. Speaking of things that are still up there, I got to give the Daily Orange a shout out because like both of your guys' full like histories are still up there. So I like to go see both of your final columns. And I thought it was
thank you.
A nice little duality because Zach's was very much on brand. He was complaining about the fact that he had to write about himself, which he did not want to do. Whereas
not complain. Please pick a different verb. I do not complain.
Bemoaned.
Okay.
Okay.
Not allowed to complain in my house.
Where he started with a tale of starting his fandom by drinking shots of rum with the buddies as a freshman.
Yes. Yeah. I would say I drank a lot more than Zach in college. That's for sure.
Yeah, that was we had something at the office the other day. And it was like an office celebration, if you will. And or it wasn't so it was a meeting and then like a hangout afterwards. And we were doing a scheduled show at 8:00. And someone's like Zach, you don't want a beer? And then Bo interjects and's like, Zach's doing a show tonight. There's no chance he's gonna drink a beer before a show. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, it's about right.
Yeah. Well, I don't drink at work. I mean,
it's
I'm
on your cookies though. I mean,
yeah, there you go.
I gotta tell you, maybe if I wrote about the rum shots, I would have an agent getting me national book deals.
Save it, dude. Save it. Is
it Boris?
No, I wish. Yeah. Scott would be a good rep. Scott would do a good job. I will say I would when I was a baseball beat writer, I started doing this in 2014 and then I continued it through my last 5 years on the beat. I would figure out what was the worst game I had watched all year. So it usually would take a while to get there, but usually by July or August, I would know this is the worst baseball game I have seen all year. This game is awful. And in the 3rd or 4th inning, I would go into the stands and have one beer and then come back. And it was just that's what I would do once a year and it was a nice tradition that I could look forward to all year, knowing all right, if this game continues to suck, I can finally get to the one beer of the year. And so I would do that every year. It was a nice little tradition I had for myself.
I like that. And then all of a sudden those games become memorable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was in Pittsburgh, San Diego, Toronto, and Cleveland.
All right.
There you go.
Zach, never. I mean, there's only 16, 17 games.
I don't want to be holier than thou here, but no, you find the beauty in every game. It's like a person, right? If you can find redeeming qualities in everyone you meet. It's just a matter of if you're looking for that. So,
look, when you're a football writer and you have to write on deadline, 15 to 17 times a year, I understand that you want to make the most of it, but when you're working for a living as a baseball writer, it's just very different.
Yeah, when you write for a mass audience, there's a lot of people interested as opposed to a niche audience. So yes.
What is funny is covering the Eagles in the city of Phil. I would love to know what is definitively a more competitive beat than this. I would say probably the presidential campaign is probably more competitive, and probably Congress
also, but less or more obsequious.
Well, we'll see. I've listened to the show from, I would have loved to hear more pro Vrabel talk, but of beats in okay, just American sports, it has to be the toughest beat. It has to be the most competitive. It is incredible the work how many like the work you guys do in the sort of limited windows of time you have to interact with these guys at the competitive level. Like, do other people in football writing sort of recognize that the way it seems so clear to me?
In football, I don't know about football writing, but I can tell you anecdotally, like without betraying confidence, that there are former coaches and former executive, and former staff members who go on to a different team, different market, and like when they see me, their comment to me is, "You don't realize what this is like. This is like a day at the beach compared to Philly.
Yeah.
Like, there's no one like screaming. I'll actually give Shield Kapadia credit here. Shield tells the story. His first day in Seattle, he like screams a question at Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll was literally, "Why are you screaming at me?"
Yeah. And it's not even like, I guess, I don't know. The audience here would probably dislike the idea of like Philadelphia being a sort of negative town or whatever. I'm not suggesting that. It's more just like the intensity of both the fan interest and the sort of level of like just passion and work ethic that you guys bring to the job. I mean, I think that's part of the deal. It's so much more just, I guess the simplest word is competitive. Like, it doesn't seem like outlets are really cooperating all that much in a way that like a lot of baseball beats, like the writers like share quotes, from like they transcribe the press conferences together and things like that. And I've never totally understood that. I feel like the Birds beat, probably that isn't happening. I could be totally wrong, but who can say?
You know what? It happens. It happens at the owners' meetings, transcribing Jeffrey Lurie's press conference. That's when that gets broken up.
Because you're all there, yeah. Otherwise,
you're all there, yeah. But yeah, I think although I do think the like. Tell me if you disagree, Zach. The personal competitiveness of like people not getting along is not like it used to be. Like, I think the people get along. It's more of a pride.
Has anything ever happened with regard to that?
Yeah. I mean, look, that's personality centric, but it's also like the media is different now. When I was at the Inquirer, like the Daily News, before we kind of joined forces, it was very much our competition. Like if Les had something that I didn't have, I would hear about it, right? Yeah. And it was even more pronounced before the internet when it would live a full day. But now, with a media company that is doing daily shows in addition to writing, as opposed to if you're at a media company where your focus is on writing 3,000 word stories, every week, whereas as opposed to if you're on TV or if you're on, WIP, if you're at the Inquirer and there's different roles within that. So I just think it's grown so big that it's not like there are two jobs that are exactly the same anymore.
That's reasonable. Yeah. I think Eagles fans are, not just the work you guys do, but I just think if you want to know what's going on with the Eagles, like there's a lot of ways to find out. And I think it's like, I wish that
there's only one best way though.
That is true. Jeff McClain. No,
Jeff is really good. I admit that. Yeah. I worked with him for 7 years. He's great.
No. But I wish that like other teams were covered that way. Really, like it's something that I feel like the industry is missing.
I think that's well said. If only the industry was growing and not dwindling. But that's a story for another day. Okay. Well, if you are an Eagles fan and you want to support an Eagles fan, go out and buy Last of His Kind, Clayton Kershaw, and The Burden of Greatness wherever books are sold. Zach Berman, probably the second most famous lefty in America behind Clayton Kershaw.
I don't know about that, but Clayton, yeah. Andy, so happy for you and all your you earned this. This is awesome. Everyone should read it. I have a dog-eared, as you can see here, and yeah, I love it. So great work.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Thank you so much for taking the time, Andy, and congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Back Monday at high noon, talking OTAs and whatever else. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching all week. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you later. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.